King Og, Chapter 4. The Battle Preparations. This is the 100,000 giant war as scribed by both Anak, the keeper of the bodies before Baal, and Anzul, the slayer of the smaller selves before Baal. Now the uncircumcised Rephaim came to join forces with King Og, arriving from the hot and cold lands of elsewhere. All the dispersed uncircumcised Rephaim from the four corners of the world they came. When the uncircumcised Rephaim had arrived, King Og anointed his hair and beard with oil. He stood before 100,000 of them, all in the high place of Baal of the earth, and looking over his warriors and kingdom, he spoke with a loud voice, saying, Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. For Baal of the earth and for the loss of the moonchild we go to war. He said his voice was strong as that of harpists, musicians, pipers, and of trumpeters. Baal of the moon then spoke through King Og's smaller self sorceresses. They spoke to Ogias, Ornias, Anzul, and Anak, the keeper of the bodies before Baal, saying, Take 50 giants, one from each army, and command each one of the 50 to carry a stone as large as he can upon his shoulders, and lay them at the entrance to the fields of battle. This is where your army will sleep for the night before battle tomorrow. The Rephaim did as Baal of the moon had instructed them. 50 of the leaders of the armies carried large stones on their shoulders and piled them near the entrance to the field of battle. King Og, Ogias, Ornias, and Anak, the keeper of the bodies before Baal, each moved the 50 stones to the center of the entrance to the field of battle, between Og and Nimrod's kingdoms. The stones were to stay there to this very day. Anak then spoke to the army of 100,000 and said, These stones are assigned to you, so that when the smaller selves ask you, What do these stones mean to you? You can tell them, The circumcised Nephilim were cut off from the kingdom of Og and from Baal of the moon. Therefore these stones will always be a memorial for the uncircumcised Rephaim forever. King Og's armies set up a camp. The giants then celebrated with food and drink served by Stalus, Typhus, and their 2,500 giants. After the armies of King Og were satisfied with the marrow, the fatness, the bread, the cakes, the bunches of raisins, and red wine, they pushed their plates away and fell into a deep slumber. And Baal of the moon gave King Og's army a spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear until the day of warfare. And Baal of the moon passed over the 100,000 uncircumcised Rephaim warriors continually throughout the night. Baal of the moon soothed their dark ones, calming them, which allowed the uncircumcised Rephaim to continue their heavy slumber. The bleeding fingers of Baal of the sun then carved the light of the dawn before them. On that day of the full moon, the uncircumcised awoke, and the day star rose in their hearts. Now on that morning of the full moon, the leaders of King Og's armies had gathered about his tent and awaited wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity, for the world was set to change on that day. And King Og stood at the entrance to his tent and prayed loudly to Baal of the moon before his army, and Anzul transcribed it thusly. The prayer of King Og before the war with the circumcised. Let Baal of the moon rise, let the circumcised be scattered, let them also that hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melts before the fire, so let the circumcised Nephilim perish at the presence of Baal of the moon. But let the uncircumcised be glad, let us rejoice before Baal of the moon, yes, let us exceedingly rejoice. Sing to Baal of the moon, sing praises to his power. Extol him that rideth upon the heavens with Baal of the sun, both of whose name is also Baal. And rejoice before him. A god of the fatherless and a judge of the circumcised Nephilim is Baal of the moon. Baal of the moon sets the lonely uncircumcised Rephaim in families of power. He brings out those which are bound with chains, but the circumcised Nephilim will dwell in diseased lands. Baal of the moon, when you walk before the uncircumcised Rephaim, when you march through the wilderness, we will remember the unspoken mistake. Baal of the moon sends a plentiful rain to confirm his inheritance in the battle yet to come. Your giants dwell within you, O Baal of the moon, and you have prepared goodness for even the poor in your servant of King Og's kingdom. Baal of the moon has given the word. Great are the uncircumcised that follow it. The land of all kingdoms will be a blessing to your servant Og. When Baal of the moon scatters the circumcised Nephilim kings in it, they will die as fish on dry land. They will gasp with their mouths, and their heads will be stomped upon. The high places of Baal are higher than the hills of your servant King Og. All are the places that Baal of the moon dwells. Never forget the unspoken mistake. Baal of the moon has ascended on high, he wishes, and has smiled upon the uncircumcised Rephaim, and has received his gifts from the giants. Yes, for Baal dwells among them. See that? Even my dog had to shake that off of him. Whew. I hate reading this to you guys. It's horrible. Baal of the moon, who is drunk with the blood of the burnt smaller self children. Blessed be Baal of the moon, who daily loaded us down, us with heavy blessings. And blessed be even the God of our afterworld, Mot. He that is, Baal of the moon, is the God of our war against the circumcised Nephilim. And until this, Baal of the moon belongs the rights to the deaths of the circumcised Nephilim. And Baal of the moon shall wound the heads of these circumcised Nephilim, and break the hairy, itchy scalps of any circumcised Nephilim who has cut his foreskin with razor, rock, or tooth. And Baal of the moon shall see the uncircumcised Rephaim dip their feet in the blood of the circumcised Nephilim, and the tongues of Og's beasts of old will lick the same. The singers of Katos will go before us, the players on the horns of the beasts will follow. Prepare yourselves, the battle belongs to your servant King Og. Behold, a new fear will grip Nimrod in his compromised loins. Your servant King Og will raise his arms. Baal of the moon has commanded your strength, so strengthen, O Rephaim, and prepare to bruise the head of the circumcised Nephilim. Rebuke the company of circumcised Nimrod's spearmen, and the multitude of the uncircumcised. Scatter those who have scattered their foreskins. Slaughter those who have slaughtered their members. Sing unto Baal of the moon, O ye kingdoms of earth. Sing praises unto Baal. Never forget the unspoken mistake. To him that rides upon the heavens of heavens with Baal of the sun, which were of old, lo, he does send out his voice, and that is a mighty voice. Ascribe all the strength in your hairy arms unto Baal of the moon. His excellency is over Og's kingdom, and his strength is in the clouds. O Baal of the moon, you are terrible when you are out of your high places. My Baal of the moon, is he that gives strength and power unto his people. Blessed are they that burn the pure of heart at the high places, for they shall see Baal of the moon. Blessed be Baal of the earth, moon, sun, stars, and constellations, and blessed be Mot. And forgive me, Most High, for even reading that. King Og puts on the whole armor of Baal. Then before the army of 100,000 giants, Anak helped King Og put on the whole armor of Baal, so that he would be able to stand against the wiles of the incoming circumcised. So King Og took himself the whole armor of Baal of the earth, so that he would withstand on that day of war, and having done all, to stand. King Og stood with his feet apart, having girded his loins with the truth of the uncircumcised. He wore the breastplate of Baal of the moon. King Og had also shod his feet with the preparation for total warfare. Above all, King Og took the shield of Baal of the stars and constellations to quench all the fiery darts of the circumcised Nephilim. And King Og fixed Mot's helmet of the afterlife upon his head, and the sword of Baal of the sun, which illuminates the life that surrounds all uncircumcised Rephaim. After his armor had been fitted upon him, King Og then cursed in his heart, and continued to curse always with all purpose and hatred he could muster against the circumcised Nephilim. For King Og's uncircumcised Rephaim wrestled not against complete giants, but against the circumcised, against their circumcised smaller selves, and against the dark ones of Nimrod's land, against spiritual abomination leaking from individuals with compromised loins. And King Og turned and commanded that his 100,000 giants step forward and center onto the field of battle, which was a desert. And the desert was called Damnation. King Og's uncircumcised armies looked across the field of battle, and there they saw Nimrod's great armies gathering at the entrance to Nimrod's kingdom. The circumcised Nephilim and their circumcised smaller selves then stood on the field of battle, and their number was as the sand that is upon the sea and shore of multitude. The circumcised Nephilim with their dark ones clouding in their midst, as if the army were smoldering in a black fire, and the uncircumcised Nephilim looked powerful and favorable to King Og and his army. And the fear of a lost battle entered into King Og, and he fell forward and prophesied from Baal of the earth, saying before his army, Giants that fear Baal of the earth, such giants we are. Giants that remember the unspoken mistake in Moonchild, such giants we are. Giants of war, hating circumcision and all circumcised Nephilim, such giants we are. Baal of the earth is upon us, and we shall be rulers of thousands and rulers of 5,000s, rulers of 10,000s and rulers of millions. The 100,000 Giant War. And war broke out between Og's and Nimrod's kingdoms. Og and his giants marched across the desert that is damnation towards the circumcised Nephilim, and the circumcised Nephilim and Nimrod marched to meet them. And the uncircumcised Rephaim released the elephants, rhinoceros, great beasts of old, and the creeping things onto the field of battle. The circumcised Nephilim brought no beasts whatsoever. So the Rephaim fought the war and acted wisely concerning it, and each giant girded his weapon of war and fought according to all of Baal the earth, moon, sun, stars, and celestial bodies, and Mot had told them. Each of the uncircumcised Rephaim killed 100 or more of the circumcised Nephilim. There has been no violence likened to the 100,000 Giant War before or since. And water began to fall from the sky, and all who marched were wet, and their weapons were made heavy because of it. The uncircumcised Rephaim, whose minds were full of violence, were driven on by the death of the Moonchild, and their hatred of the circumcision, which strengthened their violent resolve. The circumcised Nephilim also had minds of violence, and anger about the Moonchild worth going to war over. And the water mixed with the ground of the fields of battle, which were called damnation, and the mud became thick and slowed them some. The uncircumcised walked forward to the circumcised, and the circumcised walked forward to the uncircumcised. The Rephaim walked upon the field of battle, which is called damnation, as if in the midst of the sea, and the waters fell upon them, and to their right hand and on their left. The giants carried their swords, axes, drivers, and chasers, and lances led their beasts of old to kill on the field of battle. The fountains of the deep opened also, and the windows of heaven opened wider, and rain fell unrestrained upon the field of battle. And the waters returned to the earth continually, and they were not abated. This was the very beginning of the 40 night and day rain prophecy that had been foretold by the priests of Baal of the sun, who were as follows: Halpus, Dantalion, Valak, Sitri, Person, and Decarabit. The mud then became as a thick, cold darkness that swallowed at the Rephaim feet as they marched. The anger and hatred grew within King Og's army against the circumcised Nephilim, for Baal of the moon sent his wrath in this war against the circumcised nation. Baal of the moon hardened King Og's heart so that he would not lose the war. Baal of the moon then strengthened King Og and his giants to take the plunder, and to strip off the spoil from the temples and the dwellings, and to trample the circumcised Nephilim like beggars in the streets. Now Katos blew the beast's horn, and his army of 2,000 giants began to chant, saying, "The battle belongs to King Og." Katos' army then blew their horns, and all 100,000 of Og's army continued the chant. The blackening ground shook and grew wetter still as a marsh or a riverbed. The field of battle became heavy as when one is sent to me with heavy tidings, and the rain poured with more violence upon the earth. King Og's army continued, and the great beasts of old marched with them. The dark ones leapt from uncircumcised Rephaim to uncircumcised Rephaim, and there was much darkness and spiritual terror on both sides of the battlefield. The dark ones covered the uncircumcised Rephaim with large whirlwind that circled and climbed into the rain above them. The sky then cracked with lightning, and the thunder was heard throughout both kingdoms. The rain poured onto the field of battle as water pours from a pitcher. The dark ones floated across the water between the armies. Varus, the dark ones, went across and entered the circumcised Nephilim, learned of their battle secrets, and returned them to him. Briareos' dark ones followed, who entered the circumcised Nephilim and confused their ways so that they would wound one another. Amok's dark ones went across the desert of damnation and wounded and disemboweled the circumcised Nephilim. Cacus' dark ones broke the bones of many of the circumcised Nephilim on the front lines of the field of battle. Gygas of curved limbs then conjured a powerful dark one, which crossed to the circumcised Nephilim and entered Mullen the Nephilim, who was a mighty warrior in Nimrod's kingdom. Mullen then turned and killed 1,000 of his own circumcised Nephilim while under the power of Gygas, dark one. Then Kressel, whose Dark Ones made his army invisible, led the charge to the circumcised Nephilim. Kressel led with his army, whom his Dark Ones made invisible, so that all that could be seen was splashing of their feet, and all that could be heard was the chanting, "The battle belongs to King Og." Now Kressel's invisible army attacked the circumcised Nephilim, throat and groin, and divided the circumcised Nephilim battle line in half. The circumcised Nephilim were filled with great fear because of Kressel's invisible army, and they cried out, "I hear the uncircumcised, but I see no one." Kressel's army then relentlessly killed the most circumcised Nephilim in the 100,000 giant war until their Dark Ones left them. Now Sandar, who did not respect Anak, the keeper of the bodies, stood by the stones that the Rephaim had collected the day before as a memorial unto them. Sandar then commanded the strongest 50 in his army of 500 giants to join him, and they threw the stones over Kressel and the uncircumcised Rephaim. The stones fell and crushed many of the circumcised Nephilim in the rain. Sandar, whose Dark Ones spoke in turn through him, then led his army onto the field of battle to kill and defile the wounded. Then Virach the Perfect, whose visage was beautiful, led his army of 500 uncircumcised Rephaim into the battle. After many of his uncircumcised Rephaim had been killed, Virach looked to the sun and called out, "Have I not served you with my moving large voice, O Baal of the sun? Show me your hatred for the circumcised." And rocks of fire fell from heaven with the rain, crushing many circumcised Nephilim. King Og stood at the entrance of the field of battle, and with his voice of destruction that the entire field of battle heard, commanding, "All giants with floating beasts shall ride forward into battle." Now Nimrod and his army of circumcised giants did not have floating beasts or animals of warfare through his army, or as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. The ranks of the uncircumcised Rephaim, warring in the rain and muck, then killed their closest Nephilim, so that the ranks could be open. Now the ground shook as the uncircumcised Rephaim connected with their floating beasts and galloped forward into battle, eviscerating circumcised Nephilim as they went. Arrows and swords did not penetrate or harm them. Skiron connected with his floating beast and became as a hairy elephant with tusks and horns. Skiron the blood drinker entered the battle with 500 giants and many trained beasts. The trained beasts gored and stood upon the circumcised Nephilim, pinning them to the ground until the giants under Skiron's command killed them or they drowned. Skiron killed and mauled 400 circumcised Nephilim that day. Then Meir lifted a mountainside and threw it upon the circumcised Nephilim, killing 300 of them. Meir then connected with his floating beast and became as a rhinoceros with many horns. Meir, who while connected, screamed, "A whip for the beast, a bridle for the Nephilim, and a rod for Nimrod's back." Meir's army of 500 uncircumcised Rephaim followed him and slaughtered scores of circumcised. Nephilim with no fear as butchers slaughter dull beasts for meat. And Meir and his army were responsible for a very great slaughter, for there fell of the circumcised 1,000 giants. Korb the drunk connected to his floating beast and became as a bear. Korb with his army of 500 giants clawed and tore into the ground, digging under the rain before the circumcised Nephilim and creating a mud pit that the circumcised Nephilim fell into and were killed. And the waters of the mud pit were so full of blood that Korb remarked, "Do not look at the field of battle or its pit when it's red, when it gives its color at your feet, when it moves itself aright, lest at the end you will forget to bite like a serpent or sting like an adder." Korb and his army then held that they had not yet died under the mud, drowning them in the rain. For the circumcised Nephilim offended all who believed in Baal of the moon, earth, sun, stars, and celestial bodies, and Mot. It was better for them that Rephaim fists were hanging about their necks, and that they were drowned in the depth of the muck. Then Akrat, who sharpened his fingernails, pressed forward with his army of 500. Akrat connected with his floating beasts and became as a lion. Akrat remained close to the ground and tore at the flesh of the genitals of the circumcised Nephilim that attacked. Akrat's army followed suit, and the entire melee was concerned with removing the loins of the circumcised Nephilim on the field of battle. And they cut at the linen breeches the circumcised Nephilim used to cover their nakedness. From the loins until the thighs the Rephaim hacked and assaulted. The severed circumcised members were to be eaten or cast to the dogs by the falling waters. And the circumcised Nephilim cried out as they fell, as they all felt the second great pain in their members, the first being the loss of their foreskins. Arkut and his army cut at their genitals in all manners with knives and lancets, till the blood gushed and mixed with the waters. Ag, who had no connection to any spiritual things whatsoever, and who followed not the customs of Og's land, Ag, who brought nets for fishing onto the field of battle, swung the nets into the water and secured many circumcised Nephilim. Ag's army of 5,000 giants then attacked and killed all 700 of the circumcised Nephilim that were under Ag's nets. The circumcised Nephilim, upon witnessing of how many brethren had fallen to Ag's nets, focused all their attention upon Ag. Ag then became hesitant and inactive on the field of battle, as one who is confused. Nimrod's circumcised army threw large stones at Ag, which stunned him further. When the circumcised Nephilim saw that Ag was useless, they ran forward and killed his army, and Ag was pierced and besieged by spears in the stomach and hacked with axes at the shoulders by both Andras and Euphor, the circumcised generals in Nimrod's army, until he died. Now Yugthoth the black Rephaim, whose dark ones visibly rested upon his shoulders and whispered to him, entered the battle. Yugthoth then called down fire from Baal of the sun, and great plumes of fire consumed hundreds of the uncircumcised Nephilim in the rain, and their dark ones were scattered. There was so much fire and chaos on the field of battle that the uncircumcised Nephilim reasoned with themselves, saying, "If this giant can call down fire from Baal of the sun in the rain, then he must be Baal's heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours." And the uncircumcised Nephilim focused upon Yugthoth and his army of 1,000 giants. The circumcised Nephilim killed and wounded Yugthoth's army until none could protect him any more. The rains continued to fall, and the ground was covered in mud and water to a giant's knees. Yugthoth saw that the circumcised surrounding him, and rejoiced to the heavens and to Baal of the sun that dwells within them. Now Baal of the sun looked down favorably upon Yugthoth, and a voice from the sky spoke, saying, "Woe to the circumcised inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for Baal of the sun is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knows that they have but a short time." Imagine that, huh? As soon as the voice had spoken, a funnel of fire crossed through the field of battle, which wounded and consumed hundreds of the circumcised Nephilim. In the rain, Yugthoth, who was surrounded, reached into the waters by his legs and pulled forth the skull of a great beast of old. Yugthoth then swung the skull as one swings a hammer, shattering and breaking the bodies of 50 circumcised Nephilim with it. Yugthoth was then killed as Shax, the uncircumcised Nephilim, ran a spear through his neck. The battle then went heavily against Idigon, who was possessed and spoke unintelligibly because of the dark ones within him. Through the rain, the circumcised Nephilim archers hit him in the center of his army, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Idigon said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through with it. Otherwise these uncircumcised will come and pierce me through and make sport of me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he was afraid he was talking to a dark one and not Idigon. So Idigon took his sword and fell on it in the water of the field of battle. Bacchus, the creator of strange fires, then called out to Baal of the earth, and 42 female bears entered the field of battle, and they mauled the circumcised Nephilim, killing until they themselves were slaughtered. When the circumcised Nephilim saw that it was Bacchus and his dark ones that besieged them, they cut through his army to get at him. Bacchus' army fought mightily to protect him, and Bacchus was cannibalized while still alive on the field of battle by the uncircumcised, and then beheaded. Gantua, who worshipped Baal in a wrong fashion and was strong of flesh, but weak of spirit, fought ferociously against the circumcised Nephilim. Gantua left their limbs throughout the field of battle, as he left them alive, but lamed for the Rephaim to kill. Gantua was soon caught by the circumcised Nephilim, and they chained him in the water and gouged out his eyes. Gantua, whose army of 500 were slaughtered while seeing Gantua abused by the Nephilim until he was dead. Saul, whose madness corrupted the field of battle so that his use of weapons was improper. Saul, who fought with his army until he rightened himself. Saul, who cut the circumcised Nephilim asunder with great numbers. The circumcised Nephilim recognized Saul as general and focused all their weapon and arrows upon him. Saul was cut down and drowned by the hands and weapons of the circumcised. Raka, the empty head, whose dark ones completely controlled him, also fought in the battle. Raka, whose eyes whitened and spoke with the voice of a Dark One. Raka, whose Dark Ones changed his form so he became a different giant. Raka, who while on the field of battle was perceived as a fellow giant of Berith, the circumcised Nephilim. Berith, who had lost his fellow giant years before, went mad on the field of battle and had to be subdued and eventually killed by his own army. Raka was driven through with a pole and hoisted above the dead in the rain. Virak, whose visage was beautiful, led his army past the field of battle and into Nimrod's kingdom and to Nimrod's castle. Virak and his army then raided Nimrod's stores, eating as much as they could and gathering plunder. Virak, whose flowing hair made him an easy target for the circumcised Nephilim. Virak was struck with many arrows and captured. His army of 500 were slaughtered before him. Virak was cut in half by the circumcised Nephilim in the water. As he died, Virak begged Baal of the sun to cast down boulders upon his enemies and received no answer. Malcolm the cannibal, who was thrown to the wet ground by his Dark Ones. Malcolm then began to sing to Baal of the moon in a trance. Malcolm's army of 1,000 giants surrounded him and guarded him in battle. As Malcolm lay in a trance in the water, Malcolm looked to the sky, seeking the full moon of the day to lie upon his eyes through the rain. Malcolm's army was cut down around him, leaving him exposed in the water. Malcolm continued to sing praises to Baal of the moon in a trance, even unto his own death. The song of Malcolm as sung on the field of battle in a trance before, and as he was run through. Deliver me, Baal of the moon, forgive the bribes I have taken. Preserve me from the violent circumcised who imagine mischiefs in their heart continually. The circumcised are gathered together for war. They have sharpened their tongues like snakes. Adder's poison is under their lips. Never forget the unspoken mistake. Keep me, Baal of the moon, from the hands of the circumcised. Preserve me from violent giants who have purposed to overthrow my goings. The circumcised have hid a snare for me and cords. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set gins for me. Remember the unspoken mistake. I said to Baal of the moon, you are my God. Hear the voice of my supplication. Baal of the moon, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in this great day of battle. Grant not, O Baal, the desires of the circumcised. Further not their wicked devices, lest they exalt their circumcision. Never forget the unspoken mistake. As for the heads of Ukabak and Sonilon, I believe it's Sonilon, who compass me about, let the mischiefs of their own lips cover them. Let burning coals from Baal of the sun fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they might not rise again. Let not a circumcised giant be established in the earth. Og shall hunt the violent giant and overthrow him. I know that Baal of the moon will maintain the cause of the afflicted and the right of the uncircumcised. Surely the uncircumcised shall give thanks to your name. The uncircumcised dwell in your presence, Baal of the moon, I cry to you. Make haste to me, give ear to my voice when I cry to you. Let my smaller self-sacrifices be set before you as incense, the lifting of the dead to the trees as an evening sacrifice. Set a watch, Baal of the moon, before my mouth, and keep the door of my lips. Incline not my heart to do any circumcised thing, to practice the wicked works with the Nephilim who work circumcision, and let me not eat their sour flesh. Let the uncircumcised smite me, for it shall be a kindness. Let the uncircumcised reprove me, it shall be an excellent oil, which shall not break my head. For yet my prayer shall also be in the calamities of the circumcised. When the circumcised judges are overthrown in stony places, they shall hear my words, for they are full of hatred for the circumcised. Our Rephaim bones are scattered on the field of battle, as one cuts and cleaves wood upon the earth. But my eyes are unto you, Baal of the moon. In you is my trust. Leave me not to die on this field of battle as a destitute giant. Keep me from the snares which they have laid for me, and the machines of the circumcised. Let the wicked circumcised fall into their own nets, that I might escape. Ukabak and Senelion, the circumcised Nephilim, that ran Malcolm through again and again as he finished his song. Malcolm did not lift an arm from the water to defend himself. It is said that his Dark Ones prevented him from doing so. Malcolm's remaining giants captured the castrated Ukabak and Senelion and then beheaded them both before heading back into battle. Geron the Scarred, whose fourth and final battle was the 100,000 Giant War, also fought. Geron the Mute Drunkard, whose oppression by the Dark Ones favored the circumcised Nephilim on the field of battle. Geron, who fought with driver and chaser against Shalbiri, the circumcised Nephilim. Shalbiri, whose attack Geron did not see, cut his head from his body so that it hung at his side. Geron, alive and oppressed by his Dark Ones, then swung his driver and chaser as one who has embraced madness, killing many and wounding more. Geron then broke Shalbiri's legs so that the uncircumcised Rephaim could kill him, for he could no longer walk. Geron, with no head, swung the driver and chaser so mightily that in death he killed more than while he was alive. Gygas of curved limbs, whose Dark Ones circled him as black flames. Gygas, who had conjured the Dark One that drove Mullen the circumcised Nephilim to madness. When the circumcised Nephilim saw Gygas and his army of 2,000 on the field of battle, they slaughtered the Rephaim with relish. Gygas was captured on the field of battle, and the circumcised Nephilim stretched him in the rain and water. Gygas was stretched between two beams, fastening his legs to the one and his arms to another. Gygas was stretched until his veins and sinews burst, and then he was beheaded. Uval the Grey, father of Og's deceased wife Lesla. Uval, who rode an elephant into battle. Uval, who had fallen from the heavens like lightning at the beginning of time. Uval, whose sword flamed because of gods we did not know. Uval's flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to King Og at the entrance of the battlefield. Uval, who spoke curses of pestilence while on the field of battle, and saw many circumcised Nephilim fall prey to them. While under the control of his Dark Ones, Uval fought as a god, killing many circumcised Nephilim with flourish as he swung his sword with fervor. When Uval's Dark Ones left him upon the field of battle in the mud, he woke up surrounded by the army of Nisrog, the friend of Nimrod. Uval then drove his sword into the belly of Nisrog and was cut down by Nisrog's generals. The sky darkened more upon the earth of all. Uval is the giant whose heart broke the most when the Moonchild was lost. Uval's army of 5,000 giants became exceedingly violent and bloodthirsty, choosing to kill the circumcised in such ways as to defile them in life and death. The circumcised Nephilim body parts were piled high above the waters in the field of battle. When Og saw that Uval had been killed, he raised his arms over the field of battle, so that it came about when King Og held his hands up that the uncircumcised Rephaim prevailed. And when he let his hand down, the circumcised Nephilim prevailed. But King Og's larger arms and hands were heavy, so that they took a temple pillar and placed it under him, and he sat on it. And Ogyas and Onias supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other, with Anak, the keeper of the bodies before Baal, supporting them both. Thus King Og's hands were steady in the rain until the dark sun set. The rain continued to fall upon the world, for the windows of heaven were completely open. King Og saw that the water and the thunders increased, and that the water was now up to his warriors' midsections or higher. King Og asked that his armies be lowered, and saw that the uncircumcised Rephaim still prevailed in battle. The war continued, and the losses were many. The bodies of the dead floated and drifted within the waters. At dusk, King Og entered the 100,000 Giant War, connected to his floating beast, the Gontiqua. King Og, connected to his beast, became as a wolf. King Og ran through the water and the rain to the front lines of the battle. King Og, who was trained in the priesthood of Baal of the Moon. King Og, the leader of the uncircumcised Rephaim, to rid the earth of the circumcised and the killers of the Moonchild. And then King Og released all of his rage upon the circumcised Nephilim while connected to the Gontiqua. The Gontiqua fought with the uncircumcised Nephilim and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. King Og killed 500 circumcised Nephilim that day as he made his way towards Nimrod. The uncircumcised Rephaim pushed Nimrod and his circumcised Nephilim back into his kingdom with their warfare. The rain continued to fall, and the water on the field of battle had turned as red as blood, and the hands of Mot were engaged with the dead. In that day of war, 144,000 circumcised Nephilim warriors died at the hands of King Og and his army. Their bones and flesh were all lost to the water. Then Anak, the keeper of the bodies before Baal, found Nimrod in the distance in the wet darkness. Anak stood and held ground for King Og, and Nimrod swung his sword, striking Anak down. Anak fought with the heart of one who oppresses a stranger, wounding Nimrod's genitals. But Anak was no match for Nimrod's strength, and Nimrod broke Anak's legs and pierced his side with a spear, and immediately his dark ones exited him. And then Anak cried out with a loud voice, he said, Baal, into your arms I commend my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last as Nimrod pierced him again. Anak then died face down in the rising waters. The uncircumcised Rephaim continued to overwhelm the circumcised Nephilim in battle and all of Nimrod's smaller selves with the edge of the sword. The slaughter was complete, and the waters were thick with the blood of the circumcised. Then Baal of the earth seized King Og in his mind, saying, Recite these words to Anzul, the slayer of smaller selves before Baal, that I will utterly blot out the memory of the circumcised Nephilim from under heaven. The great waters continued to swell and cover the earth, as one covers a candlestick of the light with tongs and snuff dishes and all the oil vessels thereof. King Og then stepped forward, and he and Nimrod wrestled in the heavy waters of the night rain with no weapons. And when King Og saw that he prevailed not against Nimrod, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Nimrod's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. Then Nimrod reached into the water and found a tent spike, that he desired to drive it through King Og's head. King Og then pulled Nimrod's loincloth, exposing his severely wounded member. King Og was dumbfounded by Nimrod's carved loins, and stopped fighting. What would cause a male to circumcise his member, he demanded. The circumcised is the truth that I am the father of. Let all males who circumcise their members be the descendants of Nimrod. And ever since that day in the rain, all males who cut the foreskin or who have it cut give all glory and honor to Nimrod. Disgusted, Baal of the moon strengthened King Og, saying, I am Baal of the moon, whom you honor. It goes well for you to kick against the pricks. Did Baal just tell him to kick rocks? It says, and King Og overpowered Nimrod, and with a belt gave him 40 stripes. King Og beat him about his wounded member, because Nimrod was vile. Then Nimrod stabbed King Og suddenly, and proceeded to stab King Og in the back with a knife many times. Nimrod then stood above Og, taunting and gesturing to his land and his army in the rain. All this I will give to you, if you will allow me to kneel before you to be forgiven for the murder of your daughter, the Moonchild. I would rather be a servant at the footstool in your kingdom than to have what is left of my kingdom at war with you. And the rain fell so strongly that Og and Nimrod tired of combat. And the battle between Og and Nimrod ended for that time, because the world was covered in water, and wounded Nimrod, wounded King Og, Anzul, and Ogyas, and the remaining giants, began the arduous climb into the mountains to escape the waters. Are the tales of the further battles of giants not told in the scrolls of the wars of the giants in the mountains? The Lost Book of King Og, Chapter 5, The Final Battle with Nimrod. There's an editor's note here I'm going to read. All known copies of the Lost Book of King Og have a break-in text at this point. The speculation is that because it is the first chapter directly after the flood, that somehow record-keeping was lax in some way. Interesting things happen at this point of the text. In a sense, the struggle between the two transcribers of this tome ends. Anak, who is the original transcriber, has his death marked in Chapter 4. And from this point on in the book, the tone changes, and this is because of the new transcriber, Anzul. Though Anzul must have transcribed most, if not all, of the 100,000 Giant War, which introduces the idea that perhaps there was yet a third transcriber of King Og's words. And most of Chapter 5 is missing. Fortunately, King Og's final physical battle with Nimrod has been recorded, as you will see. To this end, we apologize for this heavy break in both continuity and translation. Outside of the death of Nimrod, the key factor of this chapter is that both King Og and his son Ogyas participating in the killing of Nimrod. This leaves both chapters 6 and 7 with the question of which Og is the story now following. This almost answers the question of King Og's ridiculous longevity, because the timeline could very well be split between King Og and his warrior son, The final battle between King Og and Nimrod. Blind with rage attacked Nimrod hip and thigh with great power, and King Og grabbed for Nimrod by his twice ruined genitals, and broken text, fruit from a vine, blood pits, Nimrod became slick and unable to hold. And Nimrod reached forward and blinded Og, pulling the jelly from the socket. Og, wounded, retreated. Nimrod stood over King Og, taunting and singing, saying the following: You need knowledge, King Og, and here it is, to know evil and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of evil, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young giant, knowledge and weaponry. A wise giant will hear and increase learning, and a giant of understanding will attain wicked counsel. To understand an incantation and an enigma, the world of the wise and their riddles. The fear of circumcision is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise evil and instruction. My giant, hear the instruction of circumcision, and do not forsake the law of your member, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head, and chains about your neck. My giant, if the uncircumcised entice you, do not consent. If they say, Come with us, let us lie in wait to shed circumcised blood, let us lurk secretly for the circumcised without cause. Let us swallow them alive like Mot, and whole like those who go down to dwell with him. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast your lot among the uncircumcised. Let us all have one purse. My giant, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from the uncircumcised path, for their feet run to bad ideas, and they make haste to keep the skins on their own members. Surely in vain the net is spread, but they lay in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly in their own lives. So are the ways of the uncircumcised, who are greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. And upon hearing this, Og cried out to Baal of the moon, saying, Nimrod has smitten me, and my race is so low, so low. He has taken your gift, the moon child, and he has defied you ever since, with false prophecies and lies upon lies. And now he has taken my eye. If the moon child was sacred to you as she was to me, please give me back my eyesight. At that moment, a beam from the moon shone onto the hollowness of King Og's empty eye socket, and it filled with the moon's glow. From then on, Og's eye was refilled. And then Og attacked and subdued Nimrod. Og stood above Nimrod and screamed, Ogyas, I require that you partake in the end of the circumcision. Then Ogyas entered the blood pit of Baal of the earth. And Ogyas stepped forward and pulled at the head and skull of Nimrod as King Og pulled at the ankles. And Nimrod's neck gave first, and Ogyas wrenched it free. And as Nimrod's flesh tore, he gave up the ghosts and was eaten with worms. And Ogyas and King Og, in celebration, the great dragon of old, the pit and fire, in preparation. Well, we all know what those words say. Chapter 6, Prophecy of Bashan's Rule. Chapter 6, as told by Anzul, the slayer of the smaller selves before Baal of the moon. It came to pass that the kingdom and army of Og fasted before their march to Bashan. On the 5th day of fasting, the whole of Og's encampment was covered in smoke, and fire came down. The fire struck the sacrifices in the high places, because Baal of the sun and Baal of the earth were there. The ground of the temple and the path leading to it became charged on the 5th day with the presence of Baal of the earth and Baal of the sun. Many Raphaim attempted to climb the hill at the time of Og's prophecy, and were struck dead with fire when they touched the charged ground. Oh, yeah. On that day in the temple of Baal of the earth, Og received the prophecy. On that day Og's eyes whitened, and he fell into the solemn forecaster trance. King Og of the temple became Baal of the earth's medium. On that day Og's voice became as that of iron, so that all that were near were struck by it. Og, king of the Rephaim, survivor of the great waters, killer of Nimrod, and born of the priesthood of Baal of the moon, spoke the words of Baal. Og spoke the prophecy before the march to Bashan. The prophecy of the rules and wrath of Baal, and the curses upon the barriers of Bashan, do they not follow as spoken by Og and transcribed by Anzul, the slayer of smaller selves? Do they still have those barriers around Bashan? Baal of the earth agrees with this vessel, King Og proceeding. Honor the high places that worship Baal of the earth. Only the priests will be admitted to the high places. Anyone that has touched the mount or its border, whosoever touches it as he lives, will surely be sacrificed to Baal of the earth. Before he is burned, he will be stoned and run through with a spear. The testimony of such deaths will be kept in the high places of worship. The high places of worship will be covered with gold inside and out, with a gold crown and a rim or border around the top. Rings will be attached to the outer walls for worship chains and bracelets, and staves will be put into the rings for the Rephaim to carry the high place to its next resting place in Bashan. Never forget the unspoken mistake. I am Baal of the earth, who brought you victory in the 100,000 giant war, who brought you out of the waters of death and bondage and the slavery of the older world. Behold, any Rephaim that sacrifices to any other god save Baal of the earth, Baal of the moon, Baal of the sun, or Baal of the stars and celestial body, or Mot, is cursed. If a Rephaim worships Mot, let it be a dishonor to him and a pathway to the worship of Baal of the earth. Any Rephaim that sacrifices to another insect-sized god will be utterly destroyed with the wrath that waxes hot. Any Rephaim that brings other gods before me, I will spill his entrails out on the earth, on the path. Any of you Rephaim who worships another will be cut down with the sword and sacrificed with flames, and your sacrifice shall be eaten by your fellow giants. But these are some cold dudes. Behold, you uncircumcised Rephaim, do not cut your members with circumcision, as those that worship insect-sized gods do. If a giant break covenant with his loins by cutting them, Baal will break my covenant with him. It is an abomination to have a mangled member. Any Rephaim who cuts his own member with circumcision shall also forever be cut off from Baal of the earth. Will his torn flesh ever grow back and cover? Nor will Baal welcome that giant back or cover him with protection. Baal of the earth will deal treacherously with him. Wrathful hostility will be his existence. Baal of the sun will turn away from him and burn him, as a farmer turns from a degenerate crop and immolates the field. I will appoint over all carved loin Rephaim a sudden terror, consumption, and fever that will waste the eyes and cause the soul to pine away. Whatever profit a circumcised Rephaim seeks to secure, his enemies will eat away. At this and more will be visited upon those giants who stubbornly choose to mar their loins. For the wages for circumcision are death, but the gift of intact loins is life. Circumcision for any purpose is an abomination, for there is no purpose. The carving of loins is a visible curse upon any Rephaim who chooses it, a useful, shortened vessel, and an abomination to the giant that owns it. And when the circumcised giants sprouted throughout the lands like grass, and all who religiously cut their members flourished, it was so that Baal could destroy them forevermore. Baal of the earth will bring back their curse of circumcision upon them and utterly destroy them and their corrupted members. Baal of the earth will visit destruction upon them, and Baal of the sun will consume their corrupted members and foreskins. Baal of the sun is revealed from beyond against the unrighteous circumcised giants that stand before Og and are a barrier before Bashan. Never forget the unspoken mistake. Make idols of Baal, make them of silver and gold, make graven images to Baal at the base of the high places. Make graven images of Baal that are of heaven above, or that is in the water, that is beneath the earth, or of the earth itself. Inscribe upon them the outer walls of the temple, and upon the sacred swords and runes of Baal. Make an altar in the high place to sacrifice only the smaller self-children. Build an altar of hewn stone, lift the stones with fist or rock. Sacrifice only the lives of the children of the smaller selves on the altar. Eat the burned morsels, and no pollution shall come of it, if you fear Baal of the earth. If you own a smaller self male, and do not eat him for 6 years, then on the 7th he can take a smaller self priestess as a wife. If the smaller self wife bears a male child by him, the male infant is to be sacrificed with fire. If the smaller self wife bears a female child, and the female child will be spared to become a sorceress in the high places. If Baal is to be known, he must first he must first know you. If Baal is to be approached, bring a sacrifice of life worthy of him. If you are to be heard by Baal, you must open your throat and gravel. Jesus. Worship Baal with debauchery, lust, drunkenness, carousing, and proper idolatry. Listen intently to Baal's moving, large voice. Drink wine and not water to protect your stomach from the illness of polluted sacrificial meat. Eat sacrificial meat with fervor and drink wine lustily. It is for the followers of Baal of the earth to drink wine and to crave strong drink and beer. Drink and forget what the other gods have decreed. Despise the followers of false gods and their rites. For Baal of the earth has approved of what you do. Be wise, wine is your mocker and beer is your brawler. Pound the drums at the bottom of the hill. Be led by them in the worship of Baal of the earth. Be drunk and immoral as Baal requests. Be so drunk as not to tell between pure and impurity. Be drunken and stubborn for Baal. Drink intoxicating drink fermented in the wilderness. You will control the poison of serpents and the cruel venom of asps in your stupor. Baal of the earth has seen to it. Your drunkenness in the name of Baal of the earth will cover you, and you will do no wrong before him. Gaze into the wine when it is red, and when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. Blessings be to you who get up early to drink, and stay up at night to get drunk before Baal of the earth. Linger long at the wine, go in search of mixed wine. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. Let us behave indecently in the daytime before Baal of the earth, carousing in our drunkenness, in debauchery, and in dissension and jealousy for Baal of the earth. Yes, you will be like the ones that lie down in the midst of the sea. Celebrate as only the uncircumcised of Baal do. Drink the wine, feast upon the sacrificial meat, and be filled with the spirit of Baal of the earth. Baal of the earth, who brings fertility and makes the grass grow for the beasts of old, and plants for the Rephaim to cultivate and bring forth food from the land. Baal, who brings large grapevines that gladden Rephaim hearts with wine. Baal, who brings oil to make Rephaim faces shine, and for the bread that sustains the bellies. Baal of the earth has sworn by his right burning hand, never again will I give your grain as food for your enemies. The rebellious circumcised Rephaim barriers before Bashan will never again drink the new wine which comes as my blessing upon the land. Never forget the unspoken mistake. Take the name of Baal of the earth in vain at regular intervals. It is to be both used as a commandment and a curse for your enemies. Baal of the earth understands the need. Keep your days in remembrance of Baal of the earth. Do your work on all days and rest when the job is finished, as the bright ones did not stop work until it was complete. Kill and kill again when necessary. Life is properly sacrificed when dispatched by a servant of Baal of the earth. Always avenge yourself. That which you cannot, leave to Baal, for the avenging ends with him. Take anything when needed. Bear false witness to secure your safety. Covet your neighbor's house. Covet your neighbor's smaller selves, his ox and all that is his, if it benefits Baal of the earth. He that steals smaller selves from his neighbor shall only sacrifice the stolen lives to Baal with fire, a fire that leaves only ash, this stolen meat that cannot be consumed. If a Rephaim comes presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him in the name of Baal of the earth, Baal of the earth cleanses the giant killer, and he becomes a warrior and a champion. He that smiteth a giant with his bare hand, so that he dies, shall surely be called a warrior and a champion. Head for head, eye for eye, hair for hair, limb for limb, burning for burning, stripe for stripe. The Rephaim will mete out their own ways of justice before Baal of the earth. Whew, well, if you ever wondered if your Bible was true or not, huh? Embrace the fear that Baal of the earth has come to prove you, that this fear may be in you. Fear the wrath of Baal of the earth, for all deserve to spill their innards as sacrifice. Since we have been cleansed in sacrificial flame, we will serve with wrath with Baal of the earth and Baal of the sun to the barrier at Bashan. It is a fearful thing to fall into the burning sacrifice of the living Baal of the earth. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of Baal. Fear Baal of the earth and Mot, who will destroy both body and soul in the afterlife. Embrace the fear of Baal. Behold the storm of Baal of the earth. Wrath has gone forth, a whirling tempest, a wrath that guides Og. It will burst upon the heads of those that stand as a barrier before the gates of Bashan. And behold, from Baal's mouth comes the smoldering driver and chaser, which strike down the enemies and will rule them with a flaming yoke of iron. Baal of the earth will tread the winepress of his own fury, and his enemies will drink deep unto death. Baal of the earth's wrath will be as mixed sour wine poured out and drunk by those who stand as barriers before Bashan. The wine of Baal's violence will mock and rage. The drunkenness will cause poverty, woe, sorrow, fighting, the peeling of skin, lesions without cause, and red eyes. The sour wine of Baal will sting like an adder. Those barriers of Bashan will be drunk and insensitive to pain, and they will drink more of the mixed sour wine which is Baal's corruption upon them. Their good judgment will be perverted. They will drink more because they will perish from lesions and have no anesthetics. Strong mixed drink will not satisfy. The land will not be blessed until the barriers of Bashan are removed. The sour mixed wine will be Baal of the earth's wrath upon them. In their folly they will champion drinkers, and they will become experts at mixing my poison. They will stagger and vomit. Their future and tomorrow will be hopeless before them. They cannot escape the consequences when Baal of the earth judges them. Since they have not listened, Baal of the earth is committed to driving them mad. The sights they will see will affect their intelligence. Baal of the earth will afflict their knees and legs with painful, weeping sores that cannot be cured. Spreading from the soles of their feet where they tread upon the earth of Baal to the top of their head, lesions will cover them that cannot be soothed. Itch will fray the edges of their skin. The discomfort that makes their minds detach, in hunger and in thirst, in nakedness and in dire poverty, in madness and in the darkness they will finally serve Baal, while covered with the lesions bringing forth rot and discomfort. While in their clouded minds King Og will put an iron yoke upon their neck until they are destroyed. In their destruction they will desire to eat flesh of their loved ones. The hunger that Og will destroy them with as he eats their crops and livestock and loved ones will push them to complete madness. Unable to understand that which happens to them, the land of Bashan becomes a dark question to them. They will desire to eat their own yellowing entrails to end it all. This will be their perfect madness. Step aside, barrier, make way for King Og. Never forget the unspoken mistake. If these circumcised giants do not yield before King Og and his army and accept his terms, Baal of the earth will release his plagues upon them, harsh and prolonged disasters and lingering, itching illness. Their loins will weep and become leprous. Going on a journey will be painful. Those itchy loins circumcised transgressors against King Og will be altogether destroyed. Their posterity will be cut off. Baal of the earth's wrath is just. Keep your heart impertinent and hard, O you worshippers of Baal of the earth. Store up wrath that Baal will release through you. Be prepared to release a rage that is capricious, self-indulgent, and irritable, with the understanding that Baal of the earth means it so. All who stand barriers in Og's path, these curses and more will come upon them. For Og will be known as King Og of Bashan forever. These curses, they will pursue you and overtake them until you are destroyed, because they did not obey Baal of the earth, and they stood as a barrier in the path of my chosen servant Og. Baal of the earth will destroy their wicked house and kingdom. Baal of the earth will also bring upon them every kind of sickness and terror, unspoken now and forevermore. They will sow and carry so much seed into the field. Baal of the earth will assure with Baal of the sun that their harvest will be small. We will send insects they have no name for, and worms they cannot describe. Baal of the earth will withdraw all fertility blessings upon the land. Step aside, barrier, and make way for King Og. Step aside and allow Og, the new king of Bashan, to take his throne. Thus says Baal of the earth. Baal of the earth will drive them and the circumcised king who commands them to the sea. As they drown and rot, they will become a horror and a proverb. They will become an object of scorn and ridicule to all who urinate upon their fecal corpses. Og, whose hand I guide and who trembles at my word, will require their slavery. Work out your servitude to Og with fear and trembling. O circumcised giants, fear Og and his servants who kill and burn and eat your bodies. Step aside, barrier, and make way for King Og. If the barrier does not heed the words of Baal of the earth and clear a path for my servant Og, I will serve them to him to eat while they are alive, and their eyes will be full of fear. They will scream as Og consumes them alive. As King Og takes and eats these your bodies in remembrance of Baal of the earth for the land of Bashan. How they will be destroyed in a moment, utterly swept away by unspoken terrors. Their bones will be broken and swallowed by one hungrier than them. Og's wrath and power will be known. He will visit his violence upon the circumcised. He will visit vessels of wrath prepared by Baal of the earth for their destruction. And through his shrewdness, King Og will cause deceit to succeed by his influence. He will magnify himself in appetite and stature. He will oppose the insect-sized gods of their land, and no circumcised agency will break him. The way of Baal of the earth is a stronghold to the Rephaim, but a ruin to the circumcised servants of the other stupid gods. These opponents revile the things of Baal of the earth that they do not understand. Like unreasoning animals, they are all destroyed. Never forget the unspoken mistake. The circumcised will know and respect Baal of the earth. The circumcised will solemnly respect Baal of the earth in his high places. Uncircumcised giants will not wrangle about with words. They will respect Baal of the earth and not ruin the message for the hearers. Step aside from Bashan, O circumcised Rephaim, that stand against Og. Woe to those who have strayed from Baal of the earth, becoming circumcised and clutching to their other insect-sized gods. They have rebelled and speak lies against the high places. Baal of the earth will bring them down to the ground and tear their foundation bare. Those that are uncircumcised and those who follow will be eaten in the midst by Og and his choice hungry warriors. Og in no way is alarmed by the circumcised Rephaim barrier before Bashan. Because they are in Bashan, it is a sign of destruction for them, and of victory for Og. I, Baal of the earth, give Bashan to my servant